So, shall we talk about this final matchup and our initial thoughts?
Absolutely. So we are looking at an emerald mirror, so to speak, but they are paired differently. One is going to be with steel, the other with amethyst.
Yeah, I
They
think
have some similarities. There's definitely going to be some crossover in that emerald slot, but I feel like their game plan is actually really quite different.
that's true. We've seen both of these decks perform, and by this time, most of us have an idea of what these two players are trying to do. On the one side, the Amethyst Emerald deck wants to move fast in the early game, gather a lot of lore in order to move on in the late game, where they can use some of their evasives and their Merlin goats to close out the game. On the other side, the Emerald Steel deck is playing kind of a different subgame. What it wants to do is really force its opponent into top deck mode. So it's looking for a very strong opening, forcing its opponent to discard a lot of cards in its hand, forcing its opponent off its game plan, and then enabling it to close out the game into the mid and late game.
It's going to be really interesting to see because each deck sort of is able to really sort of stick the landing and try and do what it's trying to do, but then also does have answers to the opposing deck. So yes, discard is going to be a big problem for Amethyst Emerald to deal with, but it does have a ton of card draw. And also is quite happy just to kind of get its hand down onto the board quickly as well. So if with the right lines, you are going to see maybe the discard not be as strong against Emerald Amethyst as you would expect. But then also, the longer the game goes on and the more sort of larger steel bodies we see coming down from Emerald Steel, that's where the Amethyst package is going to start to struggle to compete for board presence.
No, you hit the nail on the head, Jonty. There's really two things that make this deck a little bit challenging for the Amethyst Emerald deck. The first is the amount of removal, target removal, and mass removal that the Steel deck brings to bear. Not only is it running cards like Strength of a Raging Fire and Let the Storm Rage On to remove early game threats, but then Grab Your Sword has started to creep back into the meta, allowing it to do mass removal of your small, high lore characters in the early game. But the other problem that sometimes people forget about, as you just highlighted, is Steel has these big mid-game bodies to include Beast Tragic Hero, giving you that passive card draw that Amethyst Emerald really struggles to remove. There are a few answers to it. One is bouncing it back to the opponent's hand that at best delays that character being on board with cards like Mother Knows Best. And the other real only answer is the Fox Crab combo, allowing you to rush out with a high strength character to remove those big bodies.
And I
So there's struggle in the early game and a little bit of struggle in the late game or in the mid game, making it a bit challenging.
and we didn't actually get to see it in Jordan's previous games, but he is running a couple of copies of that Jacques, which I think is another sort of tech answer to some of those steel bigger bodies, just some of those bodies that want to either quest or challenge on their terms. And with the reckless there, you're able to sort of push that into your favor and maybe challenge a little bit sort of unevenly.
No, that's a great point. Jack is going to be a fun little card. We'll see if we see it this game. Not only is it two lore enabling that aggressive strategy, but forcing one of his opponent's cards that really wants to do something passive to challenge into perhaps a high strength character on Jordan's side of the board.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. Shall we dive in and see how the final of the Disney Lorcana Challenge Chicago goes?
You know, I think we see eye to eye on this one, Jonty. Let's see which one of these players truly stands out above the crowd.
There you go. And that's the last one of those you're going to have to deal with, folks. You've made it. So I will say at this point, we are starting with game one here. Jordyn does not have a win. That is purely a slight error on the graphics there, unfortunately. This is game one of the match. Both players currently sorting out their hands here, altering them to really know. They know what they're going to be playing against at this point. A really good idea of what their opponent's deck looks like, what it wants to do, so they're going to be able to decide on how many cards they alter here. The altering process in Lorcana is really quite generous. You draw 7, and then you can take any of those, place them to one side. You can redraw up to 7, and then shuffle the cards that you no longer want back into your decks. There's no chance of redrawing those ones either. It's a very, very generous hand altering.
Yeah, it's fun to watch sometimes because it gives you an indication of what these players are looking at in their opening hands. The one note on Brian is, Brian having a turn two Bucky is really key to his game plan. And so as he's altering his hand, he's going to be altering aggressively to try to find that combo piece. And we see that he has at least one there in his opening.
Yeah, and Jordyn, is going to be very aware that Brian's going to be playing a lot of steel removal. But even still, I think the game plan here is to just put a lot of threats on the board, just try and get as much lore generation out of them early game, so that your bounce package later on and your castles later on are going to be really sort of already had a lot of the work done for them. And all of this single target removal in steel, it's literally just that, it's single target. And if you can put 3 or 4 targets out, then each of those is going to be a little less effective.
Yep, I think that's exactly right. Happy to see a Merfolk in the opening turn here. Easy to remove, but it's a great card to start gathering lore early. We have a couple options here on turn 2. We can either go aggressive with the Flynn Rider there, which I think is most likely the play. There's also an Ursula Deceiver though, if I'm seeing correctly, which would allow Jordyn to take a look and perhaps snag one of those removal cards from Brian's
Yeah.
hand, and that's
Yeah.
the line that we see.
So we do see, oh my word, all the
So much,
options here.
so much removal.
So we have a baboon that Ursula can't hit, and then we have 2 let the storm rages on. One of them is able to be hit by Ursula, and then we also see the Diablo shift there as well. So yeah, not a hand Jordan's going to be too happy about seeing there, I don't think.
No, there. I mean, there's a big combo open up here. You have Bucky, the shift into Diablo, and then Diablo being a 3 cost character can then sing "Let the Storm Rage On," removing a card and drawing a card for Brian. So it's a very strong opening here from Brian with these combo pieces he has.
Yeah, it's also going to be the risk with the early game there that Jordan's playing, getting stuff out on the board. But I still think it's the right line for him, because otherwise I'm not really sure what the deck is doing in the early game. I think you're just going to have to put these down, just make Brian have the answers, make him get those answers out of his hand, so that you can start moving into the mid game.
No,
We
I
also
think
see
that's
an
right.
Ursula going into the ink there, and then we may well see the Bucky, and then I think you're right. We might see Brian sort of really come out the gate swinging here with the Shift Diablo as well.
Shifting a card always it feels good because you can use the card right away, and we'll probably see that happen. But it does have the downside of losing one of your characters on the board. But here we have discarding the sudden chill to play to shift into the Diablo um, Herald, which will then likely sing "Let the Storm Rage On" if I was a betting man.
Yeah, and we saw the rabbit get discarded from the Bucky trigger on Diablo coming down there. So you don't necessarily mind getting rid of a sudden chill when the same thing's basically happening from the Diablo coming down.
Yeah, and here we go. So again, very strong opening from Brian. Not only is he setting up his board kind of like he wants it, setting up Diablo to allow him to draw cards, but kind of removed that early Merfolk threat. Jordyn taking another look. There we take care of. We don't talk about Bruno, a card that Brian won't be able to use till later. But one interesting note here, though, is that Brian is down to 2 cards in hand, and so that is an inkable card that he just lost. So perhaps not available right away, but getting that card out of hand feels pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, the Robin Hood in there, so that with a shift, it could come in a little earlier, but at the moment we're not seeing that. We're actually having to see a baboon take care of Pegasus, and we're going to be inking a Robin Hood, and we're just going to kind of keep that Diablo cooking, so that the card can the hand can start looking a little better than that one card that's currently in there. I think. Just to remind you, folks, it does say that Jordyn has a game 1 win here. That is just a slight blip on the graphics. This is game 1 of the match.
So here, I kind of missed what that was. I believe that's the Flynn Rider for 2, Jaunty, and then
I believe so. Yeah.
inking a friend from the other side. Friend's a card you don't like to ink too often, especially against a discard deck, but always susceptible to Ursula Deceiver. And so not only are you building up a resource advantage, but you reduce the risk of it getting picked there, sending it into your inkwell.
Yeah, and Jordan's going to be recalling back to that earlier Ursula play, seeing what's in the hand, knowing there's a little less removal at this point, knowing that some just good questers on the board is going to be what's going to help him get that early advantage.
And here we have a Jafar, Dreadnought come down. As we pointed out before, Brian running a little low in cards in hand, luckily getting an extra card per turn off that Diablo, but Jafar, a card that can take care of some of those cards on board, but also draw him a card in the process, allowing him to refill his hand and keep steaming on into the mid game.
Yeah, we say that actually. I think he may have missed the Diablo trigger there. Did he?
I think he drew. I think
Yeah,
I
did
caught
he?
him.
If he did, he was very sneaky about it. I didn't catch it.
Yeah,
But
I think I saw him pick it up, but
yeah.
I could be
So
mistaken.
the Diablo trigger there, the Jafar also having card draw. off of the challenge. So interesting enough, the whenever the character banishes another character in a challenge, you draw a card. If he chooses to go into one of the emerald cards that have you discard a card, such as the Flynn Rider there, or if we see another Curse Merfolk come up, it is active player resolving first. So you will draw the card from Jafar before you have to choose which card to discard from Flynn's ability. No, that's not true at all. Sorry, ignore me, because Flynn is on when being challenged, not on being banished. So
Yes,
Flynn's trigger would actually go off first. So you do have to choose what you're discarding before the Jafar draws.
that's correct. Yeah. So we have Ursula Deceiver of All going into the Inkwell, Brian with another one in hand, and no songs to sing with it. So happy to send that to the Inkwell.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that there was a lot of Emerald builds really built around that Ursula there, but and real key component of the deck. But outside of turn three with a song in your hand, she really becomes a lot less valuable. So you don't necessarily mind inking her here at different points just to help with the larger game plan.
Indeed. So here, exerting 3 ink, we may see another Diablo come down, and there it is. Diablo, if staying online, will allow Brian to draw 2 cards each time Jordyn draws a card during his turn. And these are especially kind of a bummer for Jordyn to see on the board because not only will it get Brian a card off his draw for a turn every turn, but the rabbit is something that Jordyn's looking to leverage in this mid game here to kind of refill his hand. And so it feels bad to draw a card off the rabbit and have your opponent draw a card each time as well.
Yeah, so this turn it would only be the one with that one Diablo. It does have to be exerted for that card draw trigger to happen. But yeah, there's going to be very little Jordyn can do about it once both of them are exerted, I think. Here, just making the most of the one thing he's got going for him right now, which is that law lead. 12 to 2 currently. We'll bounce the Ursula to get a fox out, and we're going to ink that Ursula, actually, rather than hold it in hand. And then we're going to trade with the Jafar, just cutting off that card gain from Jafar, that only happening on your turn.
Yeah, so it leaves him with the Ursula Deceiver in hand, able to take a look next turn and see what's there. But then also with the Flynn Rider exerted, Brian does have an option to remove that Flynn Rider while discarding a card with a Diablo. Um, the other Diablo, obviously, with the damage counter on it, and the Bucky, you kind of want to leave protected. But this is the perfect mid-game card, and one of the cards that makes this deck so challenging for Emerald Amethyst is Beast Tragic Hero there, which will draw Brian an extra card per turn, and there's just not much of an answer for it here in Emerald Amethyst.
Using up the last of the ink there, with Beast being a 5-drop and 6 ink, just being able to keep throwing things over to this hidden cove. I don't think it's necessarily a big component of the game plan here compared against Emerald Amethyst, but you've got that law, you've got that ink to use. You may as well just push it over, and just make all that stuff a little bit more difficult to deal with. We see Bucky questing here, which is interesting. Oh no, we see Bucky going into the to the Flynn there, making advantage of that extra strength and willpower from the cove.
You may as well. High chance that Jordyn's hand is emptied here eventually. So even if the Bucky is removed, let's say that cove goes away,
Mhm.
and here we are. It looks like we are scooping. Jordyn just knowing that he not doesn't have the answers to Beast Tragic Hero and everything else on the board. No mass removal. So
Mhm.
it looks like we're going on to game 2.
Yeah, Brian didn't have the game win on board there. Would have got to about 16 or 17, I think. But yeah, just Jordyn just knowing that his mid game isn't going to be able to deal with all of that strength on the board. I don't think.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is a tough matchup anyway. But the Emerald Steeljack just drawing the perfect opening for this matchup with the turn 1, turn 2 into Bucky, turn 3 into the Shift Diablo, and then let the Storm Rage on. It's just really hard to recover from that.
Yeah, absolutely perfect opening for Emerald Steel. Going into game two, what do you think Emerald Amethyst is going to be making any sort of major changes to the game plan here?
I don't think so. I think it really has to play out its plan. It really has to force Emerald Steel to have the answers. If the Emerald Steel player misses that Bucky drop, misses that shift on turn 3, then it's a very different game. And so I think you have to proceed with your game plan and try to take it down that way.
I think it's almost been Emerald's thing since the start of the game. Make them have the answer. You
Hmm.
know, it's stuff that's going to quest. You can challenge it, but you won't like it. It's stuff that's difficult to get rid of. Lots of ward, lots of evasive in Emerald, and it's just always that I'm going to put my cards on the table. I'm going to be doing my own thing. If you want to deal with it, go ahead. But it feels very much that kind of game plan, especially with the Amethyst package here as well. So as we go into game two, we'll see whether Jordyn can do that and get a win.
Now, there are some cards in the mid game here that that give some hope to Amethyst Emerald. I do think the Queen's Castle, if you can put it down on turn 4, is a way to start generating passive lore and perhaps allowing you to recharge your hand. And there's not a lot of quick answers for it in this Emerald Steel build. A lot of mid power, mid game cards, mid strength cards with
Mhm.
those the 3 strength Sherwood, Champion of Sherwood, the 3 strength Tragic Heroes. So perhaps getting one or two of those down in the mid game would allow the Amethyst Emerald deck to kind of get closer to that where it wants to be in phase 2 of the game. Um, but really, it's that it needs to pursue that strong opening and just hope that the Steel player doesn't have the answers.
Yeah, even then with the board state looking like it did with Brian Jordan, it was still worth playing out that first game just because of that lore lead he got from those early questers. We see Jordan putting 6 back here, so almost doing a full hand alteration. That one must have been really good to keep, and then Brian did 4. Again, they're most likely just looking for those. Brian definitely looking for those early answers to those merfolks and what have you. Jordan probably just looking for more of them. Again, just putting more threats on the board and having all of that steel removal just feel a little less impactful when you're leaving behind a couple of other characters.
Eager to see what each player's drawn here. We do have some interesting cards here for Jordyn. There are a few interesting cards which might allow him to slow down the Emerald Steel deck. We do have the Jacques there, which we talked about, which can come down on turn 3 and give an opposing character reckless. And we also have the Kit, which can send a card back to Brian's hand, slowing him down a little bit and keeping a little bit of control on the board.
Yeah, Kit's a really interesting one. He was a real staple in this deck last set. We're just seeing 2 copies in the deck this time. He's a 3-costed inkable 2/2 with 1 lore, and he says when you play this character, you may take a chosen character with 2 strength or less back to their player's hand.
But
It
what
doesn't
I
have to be an opposing character, so it is going to be something on your opponent's side of the board. But yeah, it's going to be able to answer the Diablo relatively nicely.
Yeah, and what I do like about Jack too, going back to the Jack play, is not only is he a card that can give an opponent's character reckless, but it has 4 in the willpower line, making it difficult to remove from targeted removal like Strength of a Raging Fire. You need 4 characters on board. You need a couple copies of Let the Storm Rage On, but there's also a lot of the offensive cards in this steel deck have 3 strength, and so Champion of Sherwood, for example, can't remove Jacques by himself, and so Jacques likely to get perhaps 2 quests for lore before it's removed.
Yeah, it's definitely going to help with that early lore gain. We're interesting to see. We see a fling come down here on 2. We don't see the Merfolk quest for 2. Um, Personally, I'm a big believer in if you can't turn a Merfolk sideways. I'm not sure why it's in the deck. Can you think of any reasons as to why you wouldn't begin the quest race here? I'll take that as a no.
No, I mean Jordyn clearly has something in mind. There's something he's playing around. He's made it to the finals, so there's some line he's thinking of why he wants to make sure to preserve that Merfolk and keep Diablo from challenging into it.
And there
Uh,
is the I'm trying to think if we have it, I suppose if it is exerted and oh, how's ahead of me? Look with the fox on the screen there. If it is exerted, the Diablo can trade into it, and then you only need a single piece of removal for Flynn, which does shut down your turn 3 fox. Whereas here, you need 2 pieces of targeted removal to get rid of them. But we see a Bucky come down instead. Do we see the shift Diablo? I don't think we do. So instead, the Diablo is going to quest.
And of course, it sets up the fox perfectly as we talk about having no answers. No, the fox is the big reason, allowing you to quest with a merfolk, bounce it back to hand, play the fox. Fox now can challenge Diablo. And then you have the merfolk to play again for 1. The
Yeah.
merfolk is the preferable choice to bounce because you can play it again cheaply for 1 ink using an extra ink that you have left over rather than bouncing the Flynn Rider back to hand. But instead, we see the Kit Cloud Kicker come in and bounce Diablo back to hand, leaving just lone Bucky on the board. So Jordyn out to a very strong start here. Brian not able to remove any of those early cards.
Yeah, definitely a better start for Jordyn here, with Brian just not seeing some of the lower cost removal. We see a Robin Hood come down, and then we see a Diablo going into the Inkwell to get a hidden cove out. We are going to be able to move something to that hidden cove here as well, with the hidden cove only costing one.
Yeah, thinking about this play, and there it is. And we'll slide a character over there, most likely. And this card was teched in quite a bit, I think, for two reasons. One, for the mirror, and then two, to deal with steel-based removal. But it's a fun little card. That extra strength and extra willpower allow you to do some interesting things and make your opponent have to rethink the math that they're used to seeing sitting across from them.
We decide to go on the Bucky. It's
You know,
an interesting line here. I mean, the I'm not sure what the decision here. I suppose is getting something out of the reach of a bounced kit, perhaps. But the Bucky has ward anyway, so
you might as well move something there.
mhm.
Bucky's Bucky's as good a choice as either character, I suppose. Yeah, both players really thinking through this. It's worth mentioning. We did go through the brackets, but not only have these players battled their way through the top 64, but at this point, there were 9 Swiss rounds the day before. So these players having played many, many rounds of Lorcana, probably with little sleep, and this is really the culmination of that. So, really, the end of an endurance event here.
Oh yeah, definitely the last mile of the marathon right now, and there's no time limit. These games are just going to get played out, so there's absolutely no reason not to really have a good think about everything you're trying to do here and what your opponent's trying to do.
And Jordyn, looking good here through the first few turns, I think. Managed to put 4 lore on the board already. Here we're going to sing Friends from the other side with Kit, get a couple more cards, setting you up so you're not as susceptible to some extreme discard. We have 4 lore able to quest here to push the lore to 8 if we'd like. And several good cards in hand that can help keep control of the board with Jacques.
We actually see Jack going into the inkwell,
We
but
do.
we see a Diablo coming off the friends. I didn't catch what the other card was. I think it's some steel removal. Instead, we see a goat coming down here. At this point, Brian's board is just not looking particularly impressive to Jordyn. He's thinking, I'm just going to start really pumping the gas here, and we're going to try and win this law race before any of those big sort of steel bodies come down.
Yeah, Goat is a card oftentimes you see saved for that phase 2 of the game in most of these Amethyst decks, players waiting until they can pair them with the bounce. But here, an interesting choice to drive the lore total, but it also, not only does it give you a lore when it enters and exits the game to drive your win condition, but it also has decent stats on it and is one of the better strength characters in this deck. So, perhaps Jordyn thinking through not only am I gonna push my win total or my lore total a little bit higher, get closer to winning, but in the event that we do see some bigger bodies start to enter the board on Brian's side, I've got something with a little bit higher strength to deal with it.
Yeah. I think we could see the shift Robin Hood here. And we also have a Jafar line as well, which will also hit the discard.
Brian has to be thinking now about slowing down Jordyn with his lore accumulation. So Dreadnought coming out there, able to deal with the board next turn and also draw some cards as it removes characters.
Yeah, what do we lose here? We have Diablo, a rabbit, and a Mother Knows Best. We're losing the Diablo. Yeah, the Mother Knows Best, as you said before, one of the few sort of ways to deal with large characters on Brian's board. It just bounces them back to hand. It's a tempo shift more than anything else, but may well be the one extra turn you need just to get that 2 more lore out of something on your side of the board.
Yeah, no, it's a great card to have in turn this deck or have in your hand in this deck, and it does 2 things for you. One is, as you said, it allows you to bounce something back. So Beast Tragic Hero, I think, is the prime target for this if Brian drops it on the board and looks to get an extra card each turn. But the other thing that you can do as you get closer to 20 is use it to bounce your own goat, perhaps. So
Yeah.
you're getting close to 20 lore, you bounce that goat back to your hand, save it, and then you can play it again the next turn for an extra lore.
Okay, so we see Cleaning up all of the big quests there. Flynn gets challenged into from Bucky. We get a Along Came Zeus into the discard, and then Robin Hood into the Cursed Merfolk. We see a Flynn Rider into the discard. So yeah, definitely what's needed to happen there. I think taking a turn off to get rid of those big quests is never nice to lose those cards from your hand, but that's the name of that deck. At some point you're going to have to stop these threats from generating lore. You may as well do it earlier than later. You're going to lose a card out of your hand no matter what, unless you manage to empty your hand out before going into them. I don't know whether it's worth waiting for that to be a possibility, because at that point, Jordan's well into the teens of questing, which is where we don't want to be with goats.
No, absolutely. Brian now sitting with one card in hand. He can draw some extra cards with Jafar, but no, we have Kit singing Mother Knows Best as bouncing the Jafar Dreadnought back to hand, removing that threat. And now we're left with only Bucky on the board, leaving Jordyn in a strong board position here.
Absolutely, he's most likely going to have to discard something here to that Jafar getting replayed, most likely, or we could just see the hard play of the Robin Hood here as well. Either way, it's going to trigger the discard effect of Bucky. But yeah, just being able to really slow down that tempo from Brian is a great play. Kit really putting work in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Kicking things, singing, doing all the things Kit does best.
Yeah, we see all the strength of all of the three costed characters here, and then the three costed songs in them as well. We've seen both Friends getting sung, and Mother Knows Best getting sung here. So it's really tight mid range of the deck is that three costed slot.
Yeah, no, this is good. I think Jordyn is kind of where he wants to be. I think he'd like to be just a little bit further along the lore total, but definitely pushing it along, giving him time to find more goats to get more free lore off of those. He's got a goat on board now, which represents another lore, able to quest with a rabbit if he'd like. Um, the problem with the steel deck, though, is it can turn things rather quickly. Beast Tragic Hero is the one mid-game card that you really hate to see played, and something that Brian's hoping to put down on the board. Giving you an extra card per turn really allows the Emerald Steel deck to get back in. So Jordyn's moving right along, but definitely worried about some of those stronger mid bodies coming down. And here we have the Dreadnought played again, forcing Jordyn to discard a card. And then allowing Brian to perhaps draw another card next turn as he looks to control Jordyn's board a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure whether Jordyn just continues with the law race here, or maybe takes a turn off to go into that cove. Does have enough willpower on the board now, strength, excuse me, on the board now to take out the cove, and in doing so, will take out the Bucky as well, right?
It will. That's one of the benefits of the code is it makes your character stronger, but the downside is those damage counters don't go away. And so once you lose that extra willpower, those characters perhaps will be banished if the cove is the only thing keeping them on the board.
We're moving the Jafar over to the cove there with our last ink, the Robin Hood that went down. So I think at this point we just have a champion of Sherwood in Brian's hand. We're actually taking the Bucky into goat trade there. Most likely, Brian seeing that line of there being enough strength on the board to finish off the cove and the Bucky in one go. So doing it on his turns and stopping any of the goat bouncing early on, I think that was definitely the right call.
Yeah, anytime you can remove a goat, allowing it to only gain its owner two lore from the enter and leave play, that always feels nice in a deck running the Madam M bounce package.
We did see a nice answer for the cove there. A rabbit doing 2 in and then being bounced with a fox. The fox doing 4 and a card draw from the rabbit, meaning we can ink a Flynn there and play out an Ursula. We can take a look at that Robin. So he knows pretty much that's what's happening next turn, unless we draw something really interesting. We can pretty much assume that that's coming. Yep, there it is. That's coming down. We don't know what the card is in hand. Doesn't need to ink it. Probably instead just hold on to it.
I'd really love to know what it is. Both players now fairly low on cards, trying to draw for answers. Jordyn managed to push to 9 lore. Did we miss the goat lore? Uh,
Yes, I think
okay.
we might have done. Yeah.
Okay, so it should be, I think, sitting at 10. I could be wrong. The goat giving 1 lore when it leaves play. So Jordyn halfway to victory, now playing more rabbits. That's one of the things that this Amethyst deck has to do in the mid game is maximize use of the rabbits in order to recharge his hand. And here going wide.
Yeah, what kind of? I'm trying to think what kind of answers the Emerald Steel deck has for wide play. I mean, Grab Your Sword is pretty much it. I feel that's not in this deck.
No, it's not.
So it is a good call here to just just keep putting those threats on the board.
There is a lot of removal, and Jafar, able to remove characters while giving Brian more cards. So there are lines of play where Brian draws into the cards that he needs each turn. Now he's going to challenge the Fox, prevent any more Fox bouncing shenanigans. That would give Brian 2 lore when Champion of Sherwood banishes a character. So
Mhm.
Brian has several options here. There's another Champion of Sherwood, it looks like. So several options here, either when his Champions of Sherwood get banished or when Jafar banishes Jordyn's characters, of drawing extra cards, keeping him in the game, and then Jordyn looking to maximize use of the rabbits to draw extra cards as well. So both players here drawing, trying to rebuild their board, while Jordyn is trying to squeak out 2, 3 lore every single turn to get him closer to victory.
Yeah, and again, that early lore lead is what's keeping Jordyn in the race here now. The board presence from Brian is starting to get a little insane. A double Robbins and the Jafar as well, all happy to go into that stuff, especially with Brian's hand looking uh, empty. I think at this point, is it not?
It is,
Yeah.
and a
Mm.
fantastic draw here, though. Brian does have answers for evasive characters. It's all removal, and he does not have any in hand. So Pegasus is a 2/2 with evasive, or a 3/3 with 2 lore and evasive. That'll allow Jordyn to quest every turn for 2,
Mhm.
unless Brian draws into probably Strength of a Raging Fire. I think is the big answer.
Is pretty much, yeah, you're going to need some steel removal for it. Now, Pegasus does have an ability that allows all of your characters to be evasive, but it does have to be shifted for that to happen. There's only a few cards in the game that specify they need to be shifted for their interplay ability to happen. Pegasus being one of them. So there is a slightly better play of Pegasus being shifted onto its one drop, but even still, just a 3/3 for 2 that's evasive is yeah, pretty solid answer to a pretty gross looking board state. We have another champion of Sherwood coming down now, and all of them would absolutely love to challenge into that Pegasus, and they're just not going to be able to.
Yeah, we see the lore counter ticking up here for Brian as his Champions of Sherwood have now banished multiple characters, picking up 2 lore. But Jordyn questing with that evasive Pegasus, really, Brian has no answer for it, getting him 1 lore away from winning. And I will say, even if he draws into an answer and manages to remove that Pegasus, Jordyn is now 1 goat top deck away from winning the game.
Yeah, and we've also just seen a card come down there, and without any single target removal, it's just not going to be enough. Didn't see the answer for the Pegasus. So there we go. Jordyn takes game number 2, which means that we are going to see the final game of the match. We are going to see the one that matters.
Yeah, these are two top tier players who've played a lot of Lorcana over the weekend, and they're just thinking about every single move, trying to make sure they maximize the value of every card. And what we really saw in that match was the difference between Emerald Steel getting its ideal opening and then an opening that's not quite, doesn't have all the cards it quite wants to in the opening hand, allowing the Emerald Amethyst player the space to get that early lore lead going.
Yeah, it's like we're seeing Jordan do exactly what he wants to do there. Just get up to that double figures of lore as quickly as possible. Um, all of that early lore generation that you have to almost think of them as disposable. I'm just going to put these down and turn them sideways. If they get dealt with, that's fine. I've got more of them. They're cheap to play. I'm just going to try and put as many down as possible, so as that the end game is just a little easier for me to finish off with something like a goat package. Although we're not seeing that much of that, or castles, or as we see there, the evasive quest is doing really well. We're playing a couple copies of the larger Pegasus and a couple of copies of the Tinkerbell evasive as well.
Absolutely. I will say in this matchup, the play draw matters quite a bit. So this time, the Emerald Steel deck on the play, having lost the last game. So we'll see which deck manages to take it here in game 3 of the Chicago Lorcana Challenge finals.
Let's go. All right, Jordan and Brian both taking a look at their first opening hands. We're going to see the full hand altering process here. As I think it's really interesting when it comes down to the wire like this, down to the final game. Just being able to see what they're choosing, what they're picking, and what they're looking for, depending on their opening hand and what the opponent's going to be wanting to do in as well.
Yeah, I've got my eye on Brian Tind here. I'm looking for that Bucky. He doesn't have it. We are seeing a strength of the or let the storm rage on, heading to the bottom of the deck, keeping a Diablo sudden chill, some discard there. I take it back. Those are the cards he's saving, which makes complete sense. And sending 5 away, looking for that Bucky. I presume.
Yeah, that's what you want to really see there is the Bucky, the early Diablo plays, and obviously that early steel removal as well.
Yeah, let the Storm Rage on a card that he's really excited to have in his opening hand, especially if he manages to hit that Diablo shift. But really wants to see that Bucky. That's the card that makes this deck really tick in the opening.
Absolutely, both players really played their hearts out today. Great to see them in the final. Either deck taking a win here will be well deserved. Jordyn coming in with something a little off meta is really awesome to see. Brian, I know a huge name in the larger TCG community from years ago. Great to see him back and playing and doing stuff as well. So yeah, either player here taking a win will be well deserved. We see a turn one Robin Hood maybe with the we don't have the shift in hand, but it is something that Jordyn's going to have to sort of respect as he moves forward. We see a Pegasus coming down into a cursed Merfolk.
Yeah, Brian did also manage to scoop up that Bucky in that in when he was altering his hand there, so we'll likely see that in turn two here. And then yes, threatening that shift even though he doesn't quite have it. So yeah, not the ideal opening. Having the Bucky is nice, and we'll see how Brian manages to leverage that Bucky in turn three. Robin Hood questing for one.
He's really going to want to see that the Robin Hood off the top of the deck there, but if not, still options, still things to do. We see a Tinkerbell go down into an Ursula, and now Jordyn gets to see that currently we don't have the Robin Hood, but he is able to get rid of a Let the Storm Rage on. Great play for Jordyn.
It's a
Go do
very
that.
big play.
Yeah.
Oftentimes Jordyn wants to take the aggressive role here with the Flynn Rider if he has it, but this card on turn two, snagging that Let the Storm Rage on, which would really allow Brian to swing the board state. Um, and also taking a look and knowing that that Robin Hood isn't available, so now he doesn't have to worry about that quite as much. But top ticking a Let the Storm Rage on, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, would have liked to have topped at the Robin Hood there, I feel, but that's about as good as it can get. Second best, really, there. The Storm Rage on being able to deal with the Merfolk before it sees any lore gain and replacing itself as well with a Flynn Rider, looks like. So we have a couple of Tragic Beasts, I think it is. Oh, no, sorry, an Ursula, a Tragic Beast, and a Flynn Rider in hand currently for Brian. Jordyn gets down a Diablo.
yeah, I think a card that Jordyn is happy to play here. Jordyn doesn't have quite the aggressive hand that he wants. He does have another Merfolk there, and the rabbits are really the mid-game card he's looking for, but not able to push the lure as high as he wants to. But if that Diablo sticks around for a little bit, able to net him a couple extra cards, that does feel good. Brian, however, building towards, I think, dropping that Beast Tragic Hero on turn five, really excited to get that out there and to start drawing extra cards. And we do see the Flynn Rider come down, triggering the Bucky and forcing a discard from Jordyn.
Yeah, and we'll start to be able to quest for a couple at least, but also we often forget that he's evasive. He's going to be able to challenge into that Diablo. Normally, we think of Flynn as just being this Lord generator, this big quester, but is going to be able to challenge into the Diablo. Jordyn obviously sees that and instead then uses the Diablo to sing a Mother Knows Best just to slow Brian down a little bit. I don't think either player has had the most incredible hand to start with here, so they're both really just working with what they've got and being able to both of them build up a decent board presence as I feel like this game is probably going to go into the mid and late game here because neither of them have really had that explosive start that they want.
Now these are some of the best games of Lorcana where both players are forced to adapt from the script that they normally want to play and seeing how they, as you suggested, make use of the tools that they have available in order to pursue their win condition, even though, yeah, they're just kind of off their script and it's fun watching them adapt.
We see the Fling come back down like it never even happened. We see a 5/4. Oh wow, this is a new
Oh,
one. A shifted Ursula. This is a 7 costed inkable 4/7. She has shift 5, and now I am the ruler. Whenever this character quests, you can exert a chosen character, and also other characters cannot exert to sing songs. So that is actually going to be affecting Brian with his steel removal, I think.
yes, it will affect the steel removal, and also 7 willpower is a lot for this Brian's deck to deal with. The best card, the one that can deal the most damage, is and then along came Zeus, which there are a few of in here, but even that by itself won't remove the Ursula. So it's a card that's going to stick around probably for a few turns, questing for 3 each turn, perhaps, or being able to remove some threats from Brian's board. Just a real big play and something that's probably going to swing this game a little bit at this point.
Perhaps so. We do see the Flynn there, sort of working off script a little bit and getting rid of the Diablo rather than just questing. Like I said, it's normally just there as a big lore battery, but here instead is shutting down the Diablo. Brian's just have a real think here. What's going on? You can still play songs. You're still able to play them using ink as you normally would. But obviously, the real key thing with songs is that you are able to exert characters to play them essentially for free. A real huge tempo shift. So the fact that Ursula there is shutting that down for Brian is pretty big. I think it is worth mentioning, though, it is worth noting that Ursula's ability says other characters, not opposing characters. So it does mean that something like the rabbit there isn't going to be able to sing Friends on the Other Side for Jordyn as well. So it can affect it a little bit. Instead, we see a Tinkerbell coming down there and giving Rabbit evasive for the turn, which means it can then challenge into Flynn Rider and draw a card off it, leaving play.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This is a new card from Ursula's Return. Is a card that we haven't seen played very often. Probably at all during this tournament.
It's the first one I've seen this weekend, and how amazing is it to see on the end game, the last game of the first challenge of set four, we get to see the big bad Ursula come down and do some work. I think that's Jordyn gets bonus points for the thematic win there.
And fun bit of flavor here. The card does say other characters cannot exert to sing songs. Ursula, Queen of the Ocean, Queen of the Sea, is the only one allowed to sing songs, and here she
Yeah,
sings Friends from the Other Side to draw a couple cards.
yeah. That's awesome stuff. So yeah, it's still anyone's game. I feel yes, Ursula is a big body, but still, Tragic Beast is going to be drawing some cards for Brian. The Bucky is still there, so the Floodborn triggers are still going to be coming thick and fast. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. This, I think.
Yeah, Beast Tragic here is probably the card that's keeping Brian in the game right now, allowing him to draw 2 cards per turn, dig for answers, and perhaps refill his board, drawing into another Beast Tragic hero. And again, it's worth mentioning that Jordyn does not have a lot of answers for these mid-game, kind of medium-bodied, big-bodied steel cards.
No,
Beast is likely to stick around for a while unless we draw into another Mother Knows Best. Of course, Ursula can exert Beast and have something challenge into it. That's a line that's available, but it would take some work to do that.
I think you're right. Yeah, and I think because of that, because Jordyn doesn't have as many answers for those larger steel characters. I feel like the line for Jordyn is to just kind of race with that law. So I'm very surprised to see him ink a Queen's Castle there on the last turn as well. I'd have thought that would be a really good line here against the Emerald Seal deck.
Yeah, just trying to get some extra ink there. It does give him 6 ink. 6 ink is the key number to start bouncing goats, if that's a line you're looking to play. So it does always feel bad in the end game when you have a goat bounce perhaps sitting in hand and you're sitting on 4 or 5 ink. So at least Jordan's pushed himself to that number, and we do see the goat bounce available in hand. You would
Uh,
like to be a little bit higher before you start doing that, though.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the other option is to see what your next draw is as well. If it's not inkable, then the castle can go down, and you've still got the goat snake on the turn there. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that doesn't sort of end up coming back to bother him. We see a Diablo coming down that is going to discard the snake, and we see a Strength of Raging Fire to take out Tinkerbell. Great answer for the evasive quester there.
And now we have Ursula by herself on Jordan's side of the board. Kind of a swinging board state here. Brian with 3 characters on board and a couple that let him draw extra cards.
Yeah, big turn for Brian there as well. Interesting that we see the beast questing. I do wonder if that's just the thinking there. The Ursula questing can exert it anyway, probably would. So I might as well get the lore out of it. We're actually seeing the a crab come down there, making the Ursula big enough to take out that beast cleanly.
Yeah, definitely want to get rid of that card draw, prevent Brian from drawing multiple cards per turn. Unfortunately, Brian does have another one in hand, able to replace it, which he does
Wow.
right away.
Yeah, back to back beast is pretty huge, especially while that Bucky is still there. We're having to discard a goat. That's unfortunate for Jordyn. I'm not sure what that one card in his hand is now.
I also missed it. It is a Jacques. Jacques and a goat now. Top
Okay.
decking the goat there.
Okay, so Jacques is interesting. Does give something reckless. There's not really a clean line for it though. Really, giving the beast reckless is kind of nice. It's not a character that wants to be turning sideways much, although we did see it happen last turn.
That's
Um,
true. You could force the Diablo into a
yeah,
reckless challenge into Ursula.
We're questing with both of those because yeah, actually playing the Jacques and giving the Diablo. Um, oh yeah, is it? It's not a May ability on the Ursula there. Hey, you do have to exert something. This character quest exert chosen character. Yeah, it's not a May ability, so had to exert something there. When then we see the goat come down instead.
There's a goat coming down, giving one lore to Jordyn, getting him one closer to victory. Um, Ursula now with 3 damage counters on it. She is susceptible to being removed by both the beast and another character if Brian chooses to do that. But of course, I think Brian would rather leave that beast undamaged, drawing those cards.
I think so as well. It does bring her in range of something like Along Came Zeus. Brian is running one copy of it, so it's in there somewhere. But also, yeah, that's pretty much it. Actually, thinking about it, that's pretty much anything that takes it out cleanly. Um, but you know, all of the challenging focus steel cards, Jafar and Robin Hood, alongside something like a Hidden Cove, is quite a neat answer for her. But yeah, at the moment, has quite got the value out of her that I think he probably would have liked to when he played her. We see a Flynn come down and get rid of that Jacques. Jordyn is now in top deck mode. As we see another Diablo, my goodness, this is really starting to get out of hand on Broaden's side of the board, on Brian's side of the board. Excuse me.
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, you have 2 Diablos there, each of which, when they're exerted, eventually will allow Brian to draw extra cards. You have Beast drawing extra cards for Brian, and when both players, I think, are in top deck mode, the one that's drawing more cards per turn is the one that's probably going to run away with it.
Yeah, and not only is that Diablo going to turn on a good chunk of card draw for Brian, it's an evasive that can't currently be answered very neatly by Jordyn. We lost that Tinkerbell that was out before. The Flynn also an evasive quester. Yeah, there's going to be a big swing in law next turn unless Jordyn can really pull something interesting out.
Let's see. It looks like we are challenge. What are we doing
No,
here?
we're questing and then exerting
We're
the
going to
Flynn. Questing with the goat as well. We're playing one for a Pegasus. Not a great card off the top there. Jordyn definitely wanted to see something a bit more impactful. Instead, Brian now free to quest for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, putting him up to 17. That's kind of huge.
Yeah, it is. I'm doing the math here on Jordan's side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bringing him to 18. So I do think Brian has to think about doing something. There we go, removing the Ursula. Getting up to
Yes, 18 with a goat on board
yes.
is kind of scary. Yeah.
Yes, it would put Jordyn. It would be able to win with a snake top deck if that were the
Mhm.
case. But Brian removing the 3 lore Ursula and making it a lot harder for Jordyn to close this out.
Yeah, very difficult with nothing else in hand. Even like you say, the perfect answer of a snake there isn't gonna do it because we'll be able to quest for 2, bounce goat, replay goat. That's 4, puts him to 17. And just look at Brian's board at this point. I can't think what Jordyn could possibly have here. We're gonna play it out. It's a kit. It's able to bounce a Flynn. The questing for 2 puts him at 15. I still think it's enough on Brian's side to just quest out here. 1, 2, 3,
3. No,
4, 5,
okay.
6. Oh no, currently puts him to 19 actually.
One short. So again, Brian having to consider what's on Jordyn's board, um, get him close enough to win, but don't put it close enough that Jordyn can win the game with the goat bounce.
Yeah, this is awesome. I totally sat back in my chair. I counted 20. I thought the game was done, but no, you're right. Brian is not able to cross the finish line here. He's going to have to take a moment to. We don't talk about Bruno onto the kit. Quest, no, sorry, challenge into the Pegasus with one of the Diablos and challenge into the goat with the other. Yes, that goat is gaining Jordyn a law, but it's much better in his discard than on his board being able to be bounced by whatever Jordyn pulls out here. And we're able to play a few more characters, just putting them on the board. Again, just so it's less to deal with. We top deck a Mother Knows Best, and hands are shook as Brian takes the win in game 3. Wow, that was an impressive couple of last turns there. All
Wow.
right,
What a finals. I don't know,
that was
Johnny.
awesome.
I mean, what if, for a couple of reasons. One, we got to see an Amethyst Emerald deck take it all the way to the finals, finishing as the runner-up in the second North American Lorcana Challenge. But then going to 3 games and watching them battle out. In one game, the Steel deck got its ideal draw and kind of closed things out quickly. In the other game, the Emerald Amethyst shows what it can do with its ideal draw, racing ahead and closing out that game. And then in the third game, both of them, I think, with awkward openings and watching them
Having a
figure
little bit
out
of a rough start there, yeah.
exactly and scratching their way to 20 lore.
Absolutely, yeah. Really great play from both of them. They're definitely going to take that back. They're going to watch that back. They're going to pick up little things, I'm sure. But overall, really solid games there, and a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to cast. So thank you all so much for joining us. We are now going to pass you to the award ceremony where you can see Brian take his prize. Thank you so much for being with us all day. We're going to pass you back to that, and then the on-site team are going to close out the day. So from myself
and me and
thanks for watching.
me. Thanks for watching.
Let's go and see the winner.
Hello, everyone. I didn't expect a hello back. Thank you. Just for everyone's knowledge, my name is Megan. I am the Global OP Manager for Disney Lorcana. And I didn't expect that either. You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us this weekend. And I have been walking around all weekend talking to you, and I love the Lorcana community. Everyone has been so kind and welcoming and able to talk to me about things that they want to see, and I can see the excitement on your faces when you are talking to me about Lorcana and the events. So thank you so much for everything that you are doing for our community and for being here and competing with us this weekend. So I'm going to introduce Tannen, who is going to be introducing our top 4.
Good job.
Thanks.
Hey, Lorcana fans, how's everybody doing today? We've got 4 people back here that bested over 1,000 competitors in your challenge here this weekend. I'm excited to introduce them. I don't know if they might be more excited to get their golden Mickeys. But coming in at 4th place, we've got Kurt Spies. Good job, Kurt. Kurt Spies, everybody. Coming in at 3rd place, we've got Thomas Sobkowitz. Good job, buddy.
They're random.
And your first finalist, Jordyn Moore.
Thank you.
And your Disney Lorcana Chicago Challenge champion, besting over 1,000 players, Brian Courtade. Great job, buddy.
I'm going to overwhelm you with more things. You ready?
I understand.
I'm going to put this right
I got it with my finger.
there. Yay! Woo!
Your champion, Brian Courtade.
Welcome back, Illumineers. We're past the finals now, and huge congrats to the top players, but a special congrats to Brian Courtade taking down the Disney Lorcana Challenge here in Chicago, Illinois.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Brian, and to all the rest of the players on a wonderful weekend of Lorcana play. It was so fun to watch. We hope you all enjoyed it. We have Tannen now who's going to be pulling aside Brian to talk to him a little bit. But before we get to that, we want to take a look at the season coming up. So there are still 4 more challenges yet to come here in North America and a few more over in Europe as well. Of course, Fort Worth is sold out, but we do have news coming very soon about the Toronto Challenge happening in August. And following up from there, we have Las Vegas and Seattle happening on the West Coast.
I'm very excited for those coming up in North America, but we also have some more Disney Lorcana challenges in Europe as well for our Europe audience. The Bochum one has already sold out, but you still have opportunity to eventually buy tickets for the Bologna and Birmingham DLC as well. So be on the lookout for those tickets.
Yeah, this Disney Lorcana Challenge experience has been just incredible. And if you get a chance to come to one of these events, I hope you take the opportunity because there's just so much excitement around this game and so much to do for all kinds of players.
I can't recommend it enough. There's so much hype around Disney and the card game and the community. It is awesome to meet everybody in person, all the people that we interact with online all the time. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough.
Yes, all right. We have that interview ready for you now. So let's go ahead and jump on over to Tannen.
Hey everybody, for the last time from before, we've got Brian Courtade, our winner, with us. And hey, I just said that, the winner of the challenge. Has it really sunk in yet?
No, honestly, it really hasn't, but I think it will soon enough for sure.
Yeah, you got your hands on that golden Mickey already. I know it's something you've been, dreaming of since you've been playing this game. And with a deck that kind of is your deck too, right? Like you've kind of been on this for a while. Does it mean a little bit more to you getting it done that way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to get done with Emerald Steel. I'll probably lose some sleep over some of those Diablo triggers I missed, but, it's a long event. I'm sure chat's not losing any sleep over it, though. They're probably posting me into oblivion, so.
Ever the perfectionist. Look, if I was in your spot, I think I'd sleep just fine right next to that golden Mickey, and that's a good way to take care of it.
Yeah, no, I I think I'm actually going to sleep just fine. But, always just trying to improve. Even after winning, I'm still thinking forward to Dallas and the other challenges. I mean, honestly, I just have a great time playing. I've been loving the game. I've been playing card games for 20 years. I've played a lot of them, and I think Lorcana is here to stay. So,
are you definitely going to be at all the challenges?
I'm going to try to go to as many as I can. Probably not any of them in Europe, though.
Well, Brian, this one went pretty well, so let's hope the rest of them go that well. Again, congratulations.
Thanks.
Well, congratulations once more to Brian on being the Disney Lorcana Challenge champion here in Chicago. We are wrapping up here, and we want to say thank you from Jonty and Liam on the remote team, Tannen, and Brandon and I here in the booth. Thank you so much for joining us for all the fun this weekend.
Yes, thanks so much. And be sure to tune in to the Lorecast happening later this weekend, or this week.
The Lorecast? Okay, when is that happening?
The Lorecast is happening this Wednesday on June 12th at 10 a.m. Pacific. And you can find it here at twitch.tv/Disney Lorcana.
And why should the Illumineers tune in, Brandon?
To celebrate what is coming next for Disney Lorcana.